Alright, we are jumping right into where we last left off with Jirachi versus M-Dragon decisive game. Oh my god! I don't know why the music was on for that. So enjoy that little jump scare as Scarf Kyogre water spouts a Deoxys attack and now gets the power of its water spout weakened significantly by a powerful extreme speed. Wow. So here comes Latios with a spike down and not really having any spike immune counters except for Bronzong, which still doesn't like switching into Thunder. So anyway, that Jirachi eats a crit Draco Meteor and gets blasted, but because it lives because it's specially defensive, and now it's gonna wish up and heal. And as Jirachi gets rocks up with his own Jirachi, and we're seeing paralysis moves get thrown around and not go anywhere. There's a body slam as Fori comes in. And now U-turn, in comes Rayquaza, and there's a rapid spin from M-Dragon, and there go the hazards. A very unusual move. I think it was because he knows Jirachi doesn't always like to go with spin block on such teams. I mean, not necessarily, because we did just see the game where Solwind also spun against Hylord, and I don't know, in most situations there, you just go for the hazard, so you guarantee you do something as opposed to just thudding into Giratina. Because if Giratina does come in there, then, you know, which it usually is going to. And the reason why such teams work without Giratina is that in such a situation, most players are not just going to go right for the spin, and you just need them to not spin once to maintain your momentum and make it worthwhile. So because if Fori doesn't spin there, then Rayquaza's in with a bunch of hazards up, and then Fori will be at a half health when it next comes in, and you will be just fine. So that's the general idea anyway. And it would have worked except for the spin there, but that also means Fori does not have hazards up, and in comes Garchomp right into Rayquaza, so that's really something, as Ray SDs. And if it's not Habenberry, it's going to have to get out of there. And in comes a Dragon Claw. Probably going to be a Scarf Chomp cleaning up on that team, or at least I thought. But it's not. So nice fake out from M-Dragon. A lot of 4 balanced teams prefer Scarf Chomp's cleaning abilities. But it is going to be SD here. And now Latios comes back at least. And in comes T-Tar. So it's not bad enough that there's especially defensive Jirachi. There's also a Tar standing in Latios' way. And not looking great so far, because T-Tar gets brought down. Oh, it doesn't KO with Pursuit, and now Jirachi is going to wall it, but Latios is still alive, and that is significant. So Latios just trucking through everything like it always does. Here comes Lucario into Ironhead, and that looks not necessarily threatening because Garchomp lives +2 E-Speed handily, but M-Dragon stays in here. And, oh, also, I should have, before we go that, it's a Scarf Kyogre, so it's much less likely that that was going to be a Scarf Chomp. So that makes a lot more sense. So in that vein, Jirachi arguably should have been preserved, and Latios should have come in. So, anyway, so SD now, because M-Dragon can't avoid, looks like, I mean, I guess if there's Giratina O there, as is likely, but, you know, Jolly Crunch is for that. And he's behind. He's got to make something happen. He can't just, like, thud with CC into it. So SD is the move there. And M-Dragon stays in and goes for a Thunder and misses. And rather than go for a second SD, which would give him odds to KO Garchomp at +4, he's just going to take out the Jirachi for free. And now Latios looks scary. Now there's the E-Speed, not quite putting Chomp into Salic range. And now in comes Ray. But that actually is tactical, because it's not just about beating the Chomp in and of itself. It's about putting Chomp into range for SD Ray. And this is why SD Ray and Lucario are so dangerous together. Not just the fact that they give each other setup opportunities, but their typing taking advantage of the other's weaknesses. But also something like E-Speed overwhelming checks like that. So, with hazards, they can even do it to something like Scarf Dialga. So in comes Dialga, actually, and it's going to be a Scarf of his own, and it wins the speed tie to avoid the second Ice Beam from Kyogre and takes it out. But at this point, it looks like Dialga is quite a threat in and of itself, because it outruns Chomp, and the last is not a... Well, even if it was a Tina O, then Dialga would have threatened it either way. In fact, it being Latias is more dangerous because Draco Meteor doesn't KO it from full. So in comes Latios to limit Calm Minds, and it just Draco Meteors right away because recovering there is a risky move, but it works out. Now, if the Skarmory, it goes for a Thunder now because it looks like the Latios is faster, which tends to be the case because Latias tends to invest in bulk, and it gets a Thunder Para, so now Rayquaza can outspeed it. So now what happens? Is it going to be Ray outrages into... Oh, it just takes the Latias out. Okay. So now it gets revenge killed by Garchomp, and then Dialga is going to beat Fori one-on-one. Oh, not even that, because, well, now Dialga is definitely going to beat Fori one-on-one because it's not even locked into a Dragon move. But, because if Fori's only move is Payback, I mean, with Protect, maybe it could have PP stalled it, but Dragon Claw failing to KO Garchomp there is really big, and a sign of just how impressive Rayquaza's often forgotten bulk is. So, yeah, that was big, and it takes out Chomp through the Habin somehow. And now it's just a matter of Dialga landing a Fire Blast against this paralyzed Protect spamming Fori, which it does. And that is going to be the game. So, yeah. M-Dragon said something about an unfortunate para. Maybe he meant game 2. Oh, on Latias. I don't know. He did have 2 shots for that Thunder para between the one on the Roost and then the one on the Dragon Pulse, which is a 51% chance to get 1 para in those 2 tries. So, all right, moving on to our next series, Tomahawk versus Byron the Well. 2 Tar leads. Tar lead is really one of the many faces of this tournament. Tar versus Kyogre versus Deoxys Speed versus Ho-Oh, pretty much. So Tomahawk's T-Tar gets out of there, goes to Groudon, which eats a big low kick crit, and gets a Brock's. Kyogre comes in, standard exchange stuff, and now a double to Blissey on the Kyogre check. Great move from Byron to get some rocks, maybe? Get some rocks, and Tomahawk takes advantage of this with the switch to Fori, which is going to get some spikes. Gets T-Wave, doesn't... Well, okay, it does care because it loses a turn there. T-Spikes go down. Now, that's significant. We see 3 Pokemon very affected by T-Spikes so far. Full paralyzing on the Protect. And Tomahawk's going to preserve health before anything more untoward happens. So I guess it's T-Spikes, Protect, Spin, Payback, which is a good set, running T-Spikes over regular spikes. And there's a Lum T-Tar on the T-Wave trying to pursuit the Blissey, which just stalwartly refuses to switch out. And now it does, and T-Tar's probably going to superpower at this point. And it does, so they burned the Lumberry at least. But now when Blissey comes back in, it is going to be poisoned. So Latias comes back in as Kyogre rests, so it's not completely hampered by the T-Spikes. But it's still not loving them, as Latias goes for a Grass Knot trying to catch a T-Tar switch in. Doesn't nail it, but Blissey is just fine since it's not really threatening Latias in the same way a T-Tar Pursuit would. So now in comes Tar again, got the Sand, and is he just going to superpower because his health is low? He makes a nice middle ground move and goes for a Payback, which chunks Blissey really hard and is going to take it out, but also would have really smashed a Kyogre switch because Payback still does double damage on the switch in Gen 4. They changed that in Gen 5. Tina O comes in, revenges T-Tar, takes Rocks and Sand. That's going to be big for Dragon Pulse rolls later. Speaking of, but at this point with Blissey down, Dialga can probably just launch a Draco Meteor and see what happens. And there's a Skarmory, not a surprise for a team with a Blissey. And Fortress is going to get a free turn in here on the first. Okay, not the Roost. He's going to Whirlwind. But either way, he's not setting up spikes. Now in comes Groudon, threatening a fire move perhaps. And in comes Giratina O, which which works against both Groudon and Fori. Nicely done. Now, it being a team with a Kyogre, it's unlikely that this Tina has HP Fire. So Fori can beat this one-on-one, especially because normally it would be running Thunder to beat Fori in Rain. And it can't use Thunder in this one-on-one against... because of the 50% accuracy. So Fori can actually stay in and slug it out fairly effectively, especially thanks to Protect. A Draco Meteor does chunk it really hard, but it is going to bring Tina O to very, very low health. And since that -2, maybe you can even switch around. Well, Groudon's at roughly half health, so maybe not. So you're just going to stay in and keep Protect spamming and just let Fori go. It's not worth it. It's because it's very unlikely that you actually get the spin off with Fori. Not that you really need it either. So in comes Dialga again, goes for Fire Blast to prevent Scarm coming in and roosting up. And instead, Lugia shows up. Now with T-Tar down, Lugia always has the potential to be threatening as it roosts off that Sunny Fire Blast with ease. In comes Groudon. Is it going to T-Wave Toxic? It gets Toxic. And Lugia runs away from a status of its own. Yep. And now in comes Ho-Oh on the... Yeah, now that could get nasty with the T-Spikes. Because it was a matter of, can Lugia beat everything on Tomahawk's team? And with Ho-Oh, it's not quite that easy. It goes right for the Sacred Fire as T-Tar comes in. And T-Tar's going to get sub-stalled. But, oh, going for Stone Edge. Alright, as opposed to a Dark move just to prevent Ho-Oh from fishing for anything. And no, now he goes for payback. He was trying to catch a Roost. So it's not banded. So that's, well, of course it's not banded. That low-kick would have done even more to Groudon. And now Stone Edge on the Roost connects, and now it looks like Toxic Lugia is probably going to take it home. I mean, T-Tar going down is good for Latias, so maybe not yet, but we don't know what this Latias set is, and if it's Grass Knot Calm Mind, Skarmory walls it, and if it's if it doesn't have Calm Mind, then it's probably going to struggle to break through Lugia. So now Skarm is spiking up just to wear down Groudon more. And Dialga, but it's all about the Latias at this stage, because it's really Latias versus Lugia to determine how this game's going to shake out. So Dialga's getting its Dragon Pulses stalled. Tomahawk not wanting to switch around. Sacrifices the ground, at least gets the sun, so no more sand dinging into Latias, so that's nice. Dragon Claw, so this is totally walled too. Roost off potential Fire Punch. And actually, as Tomahawk says in the chat, that it should have been Lava Plume. Dialga Draco Meteors, Kyogre absorbs it, and Skarm comes back in, and if it has Toxic, as Skarms tend to, then Latias is walled. So it has Calm Mind, but it loses to Skarm, and that's the game. So 1-0 Byron lead. Let's switch perspectives for consistency. Dio Speed, nice. Now we've got a T-Tar coming in, as Tomahawk just goes right for rocks and spikes, so not showing Colbur. And now Jirachi comes in with rocks and spikes. If it's Scarf U-turn, then this could get ugly. Yeah, because Deoxys Speed comes in. If Tina O comes in to Shadow Sneak, you always Shadow Sneak here, because if Deoxys Speed switches out, then who cares, because now you guarantee it doesn't have hazards. By sneaking, you ensure the position of Dio Speed will not have hazards. So Tomahawk is off to a rocketing start in this one. As even if T-Tar comes in, then who cares? It's going to get chunked anyway, and then you go to Jirachi, and then you're sitting pretty. You are at a strong advantage. That is, if the T-Tar is even strong. Okay, and it is strong enough. It's probably banded. If the T-Tar is strong enough to beat Tina O one-on-one, because Tina O is really bulky. Now Groudon comes in and reveals Life Orb. I was thinking maybe Jirachi might want to come in there, but no matter, as Giratina O misses Draco on the Wob, and now goes for Shadow Sneak, which was expected. You use Shadow Sneak against Wob because Giratina, being Ghost type, is immune to the Fighting type counter, but that's fine because you want to Encore it into Shadow Sneak and make your Pokemon switching in a lot more threatening. So in comes Kyogre, eating a lot of damage from a Life Orb Dragon Claw. And back to Giratina O on the Earthquake with the lefty's Kyogre often being slower than what is probably a rock polishing Groudon. And now in comes Jirachi to avoid the Draco Meteor. And now you have an even safer Wob switch because you U-turn. And if it stays in, then Wob doesn't fear the -2 Draco as much. And sure, it's going to eat more physical attacks, but hey, that's... just staving Giratina O off like this is big. Now it's in Shadow Sneak range. Actually, I was going to say Wob could Destiny Bond and take the Giratina O down if it likes, but it chooses to go for Safeguard instead and sacrifices itself, and I assume Ray is going to come in and SD here? Or, no, Groudon, that works too. Groudon is going to Rock Polish, taking nothing from Shadow Sneak, and yeah, looking very sweepy right now. And makes a great move in Earthquakes. That was really nicely done by Tomahawk, because a lot of people would say, oh, just stay, go for the Dragon Claw, don't get too fancy. But Byron's team is clearly offensive. It's not going to have the bulk to withstand offensive Life Orb Groudon, especially with Giratina and Kyogre weakened. So his only recourse at this point is going to be Life Orb Recoil. And even just having Jirachi take one bit of Life Orb Recoil extra can be a game breaker when he's going to try and take Life Orb Recoil and then Shadow Sneak. So that's a really heads-up move by Tomahawk. Great, and a lot of players would have played it safe, and he did not do that, and might be a big difference. Yeah, Dragon Claw KOs this, and now he has 3 more hits for 2 more Pokemon. So, or 2 more hits for 2 more Pokemon, I'm sorry. So yeah, that wound up being very significant. Kyogre goes down. Maybe if there's a Swift Swimmer, then there's a chance, but we don't even know the last poke yet. And so probably going to be something like a Palkia or a Latios that can help with Kyogre. And Palkia goes down. I think that probably should have been an EQ from Groudon, because no way Palkia lives Life Orb Groudon after Rocks and Spikes. And if Dragon Claw, you risk Habenberry. So I think that should have been an EQ, but other than that, nice game. And we're going to Game 3. Finally, not a mirror lead matchup. We've got Rai thundering into Kyogre, not bothering with any Dark Pulse stuff. Water Spout is weakened, and Darkrai just barely hangs on against it. And now a double, a switch by both players, going to Groudon and T-Tar respectively. T-Tar would have finished off the Darkrai with Sand without having, so that was a really nice move. And Byron goes to Groudon trying to get a 1-up on the Kyogre. But also knowing that it's very likely a Steel comes in. Because the Thunder doing exactly 50 makes you think, alright, I don't know how bulky that is and might be able to take the second one. But also it's likely that Tomahawk doesn't know the role. Well, actually, no, Tomahawk would know the role. But it's also likely that it is going to be a KO, and instead some sort of Steel type or something is going to come in to try and take the Darkrai. And that's where you go to Groudon and get your rocks up. Now, Tomahawk takes advantage of those seemingly free rocks and smacks the Groudon with a big, big CB payback, so which, that really stings, and then goes to Bronzong. So that was a really nice move. Rather than, we saw this exchange in the last video, rather than give the rocker totally free rocks, you smack it on the free rocks and then go to your rocker for minimal difference. Now, the Zong is going to Hypnosis, and that is a game changer, because Bronzong's biggest flaw is how passive it is into walls like Fori that exploit it, and with Sleep, you completely flip that on its head. In comes Latios, running from the sleeping Fori, and gets T-Waved. That's brutal, and that's going to make CB Tar have a really easy time against it. And it manages to hit Thunder, does nothing, and it is dropped by Pursuit, as Dragon Pulse does not very much. T-Tar really pulverizes Pokemon like that. The really bulky ones that don't hit very hard, and T-Tar's such a game changer in that sense. Now, Spin goes off as Kyogre switches in, but now it's just all about spamming Surf without Latios in the picture. And comes Dialga, solid backup, solid Pokemon in these kinds of teams if you're just going to be scarfing it. Takes a hefty chunk from Surf because Kyogre's still strong, but goes to Dialga, probably expecting a Thunder aimed at both Kyogre, or at the Bronzong switch more so. But instead they just exchange Dragon Pulses, both at low health, Tomahawk showing lefties on his Dialga, but it's a Dragon Pulse set, so we don't know what it is exactly. Protect? Dude, Dialga can do so many things, so you never know. But in comes a Mewtwo as the last for Byron, and that's an irritating Pokemon, unless it gets Thunder paired, which is exactly what happens. So now in comes Fortress again on a Dragon Pulse, knowing in rain it can at least stomach one hit and get up hazards. And it gets a Brox and Spike, so he's going to be pressuring with that, but he's really hinging on Darkrai and Dialga cleaning up for him. He's got to be careful. I mean, he can at least keep hazards off from Bronzong now, because the para actually makes it immune to sleep, which is funny. Dragon Pulse, Protect, Thunder, Draco Meteor. What a set. I love it. Yeah, and even with Groudon being weakened now. Kyogre, the spikes was also big because it actually KOs Kyogre. So now Rain will not be up no matter what. But in comes Latios. So it's all about finishing with Scarf. Actually, even Bronzong at this point is a major threat because it just EQs 4E down. I mean, I know there's Protect and everything, but he doesn't risk the Zong of the switch. He sacks Kyogre, just goes right for EQ. And before he can get up too many spikes, he goes to T-Tar. And yeah, he goes for more spikes to try and KO the T-Tar, but you need 3 layers for that. And gets it in on the second, and now CB Stone Edge will KO something. Well, now with the Darkrai switching in, even the Sand will KO, even if it misses. So in comes this again, T-Tar sacked, Bronzong comes in, and if it just gets EQ... No, he rocks to get more chip on the 4E. So, and now he spams EQ very safely. He's going to try and... Oh, he doesn't Protect first, he just tries to spin. But it's not going to make much of a difference. He has to try and PP stall the Bronzong out of EQs or something, and that does not work. So, doesn't risk the Bronzong to, and risk losing to Dialga, because Dialga's still out of Stealth Rock range, so it can't even do that. So instead, Latios comes in, Dracos, and yeah, Dialga needs some sort of insane miracle. So, Tomahawk is going to take this series, and that will... Let me check if that was the winners or losers bracket. I think that was the winners bracket, I believe. Yes, it was. So yeah, Tomahawk advances in the winners bracket, and Byron drops to the losers bracket. Moving on, Gary Oak against Alex Walls. Ho-Oh. Well, 2 Ho-Oh. Alex Brave Birds first, shows Life Orb, and Gary... just is not Life Orb, and so barely survives the opposing Ho Brave Bird and his own Brave Bird recoil. So that brings in Darkrai. So Darkrai is going to either claim a KO or force more information from Gary. But Darkrai also has a Dark Void to shut down another Pokemon. So in terms of trades, I mean, Gary is about to have momentum now because he gets to choose how to respond to the Darkrai as it shows Life Orb. But it also, Dark Void shutting down another Pokemon is really big in such fast-paced slugfest like this. Unless you got, Lumberries and Sleep Talks and stuff like that. So, those are... Oh, there's a Dark Void miss, and just goes right for Spatial Rend, and does a bit... Oh, so there's the Lumberry. So, okay, so it needed to hit 2 straight Dark Voids, which, still favor, but still unfortunate. So, speaking of Lumberry... And now in comes a Heatran, which dodges a Spatial Rend. And rather than risking a Water move follow-up, then he goes to Groudon to get Sun going. And that works out, as now Groudon Toxics the other Groudon. In comes 4E, and this could very well eat a Fire move. It doesn't, but there's a Giratina O. On the Rapid Spin, people are just so gung-ho to Rapid Spin with 4E in this tournament. Look how much more pressure you're exerting with the hazards. And 4 gets HP Fire, so this game's extremely over. I don't like to call him early like this, but now, because we also don't know the last, so that was a little premature, but just the way it died without doing anything at all just makes a comeback very unlikely. So, Palkia struggle at -2, not going to really be breaking through Groudon like this. And a Toxic Groudon is just such a great Pokemon. But is it going to be Protect? It is. Awesome. I like this set when it has Lava Plume last over Rocks, so you don't get stuffed by things like Zong and Scar, but it's great either way. So now in comes Heatran, which in Sun is a amazing Palkia answer, even though it does take a lot from that Draco Meteor. Good lord. That's some serious boostage. But yeah, Sun teams famously just loathe facing Heatran. And... yeah, prime example. So, gets sacrificed, Groudon protects, and this one is going to run its course. Unless Alex's Palkia goes on an obscene rampage. But nope, there's a Mewtwo to finish it off. So, Gary versus Alex game 2. Another Darkrai. Here's a T-Tar. What's the answer going to be? Kyogre, and it gets T-Waved. In comes Latios, and that eats a Surf for very little damage, so... bulky Kyogre. Double switch to T-Tar rather than just letting Latias Thud into a check. That's why double switching is great. And this time the Darkrai decides, alright, I'm going to stay and I'm going to Void, and the T-Tar shows it is not Lumberry. So, stays in and just sleeps, which is odd. I guess if you're really confident that the Darkrai is Scarfed and locked into Void, because otherwise you're just giving it free Focus Blast barrages. So I guess he was really confident that it was Scarf. And stays asleep quite a while, max turns in fact, as Kyogre switches in again, makes that recover, and in comes the T-Tar. Dark Pulse and Taunt this time to prevent any more T-Wave or Rocks. So there's another Void, and now Darkrai doesn't even need Focus Blast to wear it down necessarily. He's just going to use Pulse and Bad Dreams to get the job done. I wonder if this is like Custap or something. Now T-Tar wanted to keep Sleep Claws alive, switches to Chomp, and it avoids Dark Pulse because Sand Veil is... Yeah, if there was one thing I had to change about DPP, well, besides Baton Pass nonsense, it would definitely be doing... I guess I'd have to break mechanics or something, but I would change Chomp having Sand Veil. It's so stupid. Fortunately, it doesn't come into play too much. But yeah, Ice Beam thuds into a lefty's Dialga, and then there's a double switch to Chomp as Alex responds with a Latios. Now going back to Lugia, which is a great Chomp answer, unless it has Toxic, which is a great filler on Scarf, so nice choice there. But it's going to be... and that's a great move from Alex there, rather than just having Lugia thud into Dialga again. He doubles to his own Dialga, and Gary makes a... Well, I was going to say... a good move in that he is aware of this possibility and wants to go to Magnezone to do something to Alex's Dialga, but he winds up just getting Earth-powered into Dust. So that did not quite work out. The Dialga shows itself to be Life Orb, and in comes a Gliscor. Oh no, it's spamming Sub in Sand. Well, now Kyogre replaces the Sand with Rain, but Sub-Para Sandvale stuff, not a fan. Just gonna keep... See, this reminds me of a video I want to make on why I don't like Para... Just because I think the odds are too high. I think it's too easy to abuse. Stuff like this, it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna, fish for some Sub, and it winds up being the optimal move a lot of the time, which is another... And even when it's not optimal, it happens too much. So it's so powerful that it often winds up being the optimal move, and even when it's not, it winds up rewarding you anyway. Anyway, so Chomp switches into Darkrai Dark Pulse that, by virtue of having dodged one earlier, and now EQs, and for some reason Lugia does not come in there, and gives it a free KO. But now Alex's big threat is his own Latios, with T-Tar being out of the picture. He just has to avoid getting swept by Scarf Chomp in return, which shouldn't be a... But he's not going to Lugia for some reason. He just loses his... Okay, well, at least the Lugia... I don't think he had to sack it, but he gets Kabutops in for free. And Kabutops is also a massive threat here. So he's got both Latios and Kabutops, so he's definitely extremely advantaged. And Dialga comes in and gets dropped by Soldew Thunder into Draco. And now in comes Latios, which Dragon Pulses lives, and then loses the second speed tie and gets Draco'd again. So that felt inefficient. There's no way that was that was optimal, because now Latios is gone, and now you can actually struggle against the Dialga. I think it's just a support Dialga, or no, it's Bulk Up, which makes it even worse. Let's sub-protect Dialga against a toxic Lugia. So I like the synergy on Gary's team a lot in terms of breaking down counters. So, but yeah, this game is now suddenly extremely over because of the thrown away Latios, and maybe even Kyogre to an extent, just in terms of how it took away a sacrifice. So Topps comes in and is going to lose. All right, so that's the well, unless. Yeah, as Gary says in the chat that he choked because he should have just subbed again to PP stall it, as opposed to risking getting crit flinched. I mean, an unlikely one, but you never know when Pokemon is going to be feeling particularly vindictive. So our final series for the day is Sky Solo, aka the Strap, against 64 Squares. Very interested in how these two New Age players go at it. Ho-Oh into Kyogre. Switching out, in comes Latios on a Hydro Pump. And now out of Groudon on the T-Wave or Ice Beam. On the T-Wave, nicely done. Whoops, I skipped ahead a little too fast. And Groudon doesn't even stay in here. Now he goes to Dialga. So that might suggest non-Rocks Groudon. Very possible. Might also just suggest that he wanted to get a Dialga in on Kyogre? I don't know. There's a lot to digest there. Because he wanted to get Dialga in without having it eat a T-Wave on the switch or eat a Water move in Rain on the switch. Which is a little specific. But, I mean, it's also very valid in case he wanted Dialga to get a Brox on the Kyogre without taking heavy Water move damage, which is, totally valid. So, I respect that. I like that. Now, and it does have Rocks, so Groudon does not have Rocks. And now they trade Rocks as Sky Solo's own Groudon does. And now Ho-Oh comes in, eats the T-Wave with a Lumberry, and now is threatening Sacred Fires, which attack into the Kyogre. No burn, but it's probably going to be faster in Brave Birds and at least puts Kyogre in range of Stealth Rock. So if that's not a Cuss-type Kyogre, it's not going to do anything else, and this Groudon is sent in with the certainty it will be faster, and so, yeah, definitely some late-game threat with this Groudon. And, yeah, the Kyogre was in Rock's range, and now Sun is going to be the dominant weather for the rest of this battle, unless someone whips out a surprise T-Tar. In comes Jirachi, Scarf from how much that Draco does. And now it's going to U-turn very freely out of the Groudon. What's going to come in? Latios to launch its own Draco Meteor. So we see a little mirror here. We don't see any Draco takers from Sky Solo or the Strap yet. And it goes right for the HP Fire. Wonderful move. Knowing that no matter what steel comes in there, if it's a steel that resists Draco Meteor, i.e. not Dialga, then it's going to get absolutely smashed by HP Fire. Unless there's a Heatran, and I guess he felt confident that there was not going to be a Heatran there. You don't really see Heatran on a lot of Groudon Kyogre teams, so that was definitely that was very much a great read in that. Look, it's not going to be Heatran because Tran is on like dedicated Sun stuff, not stuff that works in both weathers. So yeah, that was really nicely done, and rather than just going for the safe Draco Meteor, then gets a free KO for it. So now in comes Tina O. The Latios is in sneak range. Dialga is also in good health to take it out. And the Strap just goes right for the safe sneak as Dialga comes in. And then gets double crit by sneak and EQ. The EQ one is obviously the one that mattered. But in comes Mewtwo, also a good Pokemon to have, especially if there's no Heatran in the picture, if it's Taunt Wisp. And this is a very physical Giratina O, because it has Dragon Claws, its Dragon Stab, and it hits quite hard. But Calm Mind, Recover Mewtwo, I mean, bulky Mewtwo is really showing its stuff as a great anti-offense Pokemon. And so we see it here as it's just spamming Recover. I mean, I don't know if it's PP stalling or what, because yeah, there's pressure, but there's also a lot of Dragon Claws and Shadow Sneaks. So yeah, it looks like the move is just it's got 6 more, and they'll still have 5 recovers after. Because you don't want to Ice Beam, because that's definitely the move, because +1 Ice Beam doesn't KO Tina O from bulky Mewtwo, and after this next Dragon Claw, you'll be in Shadow Sneak range, so it is the move, so yeah, no, that's definitely correct. And no crits here. I think that Wisp might have been the move a while ago, not just now. Maybe not. Because I guess it's, yeah, maybe not if you're not going to... Oh, no, I guess, no, it was, because Burn into Dragon Claw into Shadow Sneak does take Mewtwo out, so... I guess it doesn't really make a difference anyway if that was going to happen regardless, so you may as well go for the crits first and then go for the burn thing, rather than risk a Will-O-Wisp miss. So, yeah, okay, if a crit will beat it anyway, so, no, both players played that correctly. Nicely done. Jirachi comes in, and in comes the Strap to try and finish the game off with what looks like a Scarf Shaman using HP Ice. Latios mementos and gives his Groudon an opportunity to Rock Polish safely, barring Lava Plume burns. Problem is that Scarf Shaman outruns Groudon even at +2, and with Leaf Storm will... Oh, I guess it doesn't. I guess that's really fast. But even he was expecting that to be outsped because he says dodge. Now, I don't know if he was just joking or not. But like that's one of the reasons why Scarf Shaman gets used, and it is a Scarf Shaman because it outran the Scarf Jirachi there. So I guess it's possible for that Groudon to be like freakishly fast, or the Scarf Shaman is like modest or something. I don't know. It's possible. But going right to the Scarf Shaman was a good move because in the event that Groudon attacks on the switch, then Latios can still beat it. As it gets Dragon Clawed. Yeah, and then Latios gets a free hit on it because it won't have boosted its speed, and then Sky Solo's own Groudon will make the move. So that was nicely done, but you can't stay in with Groudon there because then it's going to boost both its attack and speed. Or, you know, it'll boost its attack, or its speed twice, and then it'll definitely outspeed the Scarf Shaman. But then something, well, especially because that EQ does a lot of damage. And the second EQ crits, but it was going to win that anyway, unless he got crit himself. So that's a 1-0 lead for 64 squares. That was a really intense game. I enjoyed that one. DOA into T-Tar. It's going to knock over Spikes. It's going to superpower T-Tar down to the Sash. No CB to be found here. It gets payback to the Sash. Sand does the job. Darkrai finishes it off. Darkrai also good on such teams because it shuts down an extra Pokemon with Void. But it's going to have to run from this Kyogre, and which might be Scarf or Lumberry, and it just goes right for Thunder to try and mess with Dialga more, ruin a Lottie Twin. Calm Minds as Dialga sets up rocks, and the Dialga looks offensive, or just, unless it roared there. Yeah, that's a very slow Kyogre if it's getting, you know, outsped or speed tying with a very specially defensive Roar Dialga. And it roars in a Scarf Jirachi, which is just going to start Iron Heading, and promptly gets punished with an Earth Power. Now, having done a net 5%, and in comes Kyogre again, not fearing the Dialga's damage itself, because it doesn't have Thunder, but it is going to get roared around and reveals a Garchomp. We'll switch perspectives, because for some reason the back Chomp sprite tends to not work in replays. And, yeah, Dialga is sacked, it's at low health. Better to not let anything else get risked. And Latios comes in knowing the Chomp is either Scarf and locked into EQ, or it's just going to get outsped. Draco is dropped. Since Jirachi's at low health, something is probably going to get KO'd. And that Pokemon is Kyogre, getting ripped apart from 63. In comes Wob for the revenge kill. We'll also go back to the regular perspective. Oh, ow. As Draco first misses on the Encore. So the Encore was to prevent, like, Calm Minds or something. So good move. But then Draco crits from -2, and that really, really bites. And now we're going back to the Chomp thing. As -4 Draco Meteor actually does not KO Chomp and gives it the Salig boost while Chomp SDs, and suddenly the tides have turned as the crit one, but it winds up not helping much because Rayquaza just comes in E-speeds for the revenge kill. And in comes 64 Squares' own Rayquaza, but he's down a Pokemon, so even if he wins this one-on-one, it's likely that Sky Solo, depending on what the last is just going to be able to finish it off. As Rai comes in, lives E-speed, Dark Pulses, and it's a Scarf Darkrai, so it beats Jirachi as well. 1-1 going into Game 3. Is this the same perspective? Yes, it is. Alright, I'm excited for this one. Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh! Hell yeah. Perfect start. We see Brave Bird. No Life Orb. We see another Brave Bird. Also no Life Orb. So both Ho-Oh bring each other down to the same exact percent. That's awesome. So even though 64 Squares' Ho-Oh did 67, and the Straps did 63, the recoil was... That's interesting. Anyway, so now not wanting to risk being slower, he goes right to Dialga, and Ho-Oh's Brave Bird does not put it in range, but it looks like a Scarf Dialga with no lefties, so 64 is not going to sack the Ho-Oh, because even though it's at 4%, it will probably die to rocks, still good death fodder. Jirachi comes in, takes a nasty crit Dragon Pulse for half its health, but it also doesn't really threaten Dialga out, even when it's been chipped and is locked in a Dragon Pulse. So Sky Solo can definitely just stay in and Dragon Pulse again, and in comes a Cresselia, so that's big information. Now, Ho-Oh comes in, because it might still live and it eats a Lumberry on the T-Wave, so that's nice. So now it gets to fire off a Sacred Fire. Might even live an Ice Beam. Oh, it gets a Roost off. The lead Ho-Oh doesn't always run Roost, because you're not counting on getting rid of rocks. You just want to do as much damage as possible. But you, when you can use Latias, Ho-Oh defensively, then it's just one of the biggest pains to deal with. So that is really big, because rocks are not looking like there's definitely a Groudon here, but it's not coming in just yet to get those rocks up, and that might be really big if Sky Solo is able to leverage that Ho-Oh well. In comes Heatran, which looks like another massive pain for Squares' team, as it now is going to fire off a, well, I was going to say Lava Plume, which is going to hit Groudon hard, but Toxic works too. Now, does Ho-Oh come back in on the rocks? No, it just... Okay, well, Ho-Oh can still be useful even with rocks up, so that was really nice, that Roost. I'm a big fan. Now rocks go up, Lava Plume, Instant Burn. That's unfortunate. Both Groudon status, so it's really going to be the Sun Abusers at this point. Now, Ho-Oh comes in on the Wow, nice move. As now Ho-Oh is going to Roost again, and with Squares' Ho-Oh out of the picture, Sky Solo definitely has the advantage. Even though the Ho-Oh is, good lord, that does a lot. Even though the Ho-Oh is paralyzed, it's not really, it doesn't really have much that can threaten it. It's not, it's quite likely that this Groudon doesn't have a rock move. And Latias is not a Ho-Oh answer. Especially in this scenario where you have to rely on 50% thunder accuracy. And it gets parried, and that winds up working out. But yeah, that Ho-Oh puts in a lot of work and effectively takes Latias out of the game. Now in comes Dialga. Latias gets sacked because it's just as good as Ho-Oh in terms of death fodder. And in comes Cress again, but Cress also gets stuffed by, well, not just Heatran, but also Skarmory as well. So now the spikes are going to start piling up, and yeah, the pressure, it's starting to close in. Just gotta, at least Lava Plume is still going to hurt Skarmory, but at least it can't get burned thanks to the T-Wave. And he's not going to risk it anyway. He's going to go to Latias, which actually gets EQ'd. Interesting move. I guess if he was thinking, I'm going to go to Heatran on the Lava Plume, and I'm going to be slick, and I'm going to protect, and then the Groudon is toast, he wanted to catch that. But nice move from Sky Solo, not risking either. Ho-Oh is sacked there, and there's a reveal of Grass Knot on Latias, but it's looking like okay, so the fact HP Fire was used there makes it almost certain the last move is Draco Meteor, because the only reason you wouldn't use Dragon Stab there is because you were afraid of it getting weaker afterwards. So HP Fire chunks it nicely, and if it is something with Protect, which is the fear Sky Solo had, then it's probably not going to KO in return, so you get a follow-up anyway. So Sunny HP Fire does just enough, and it breaks a sub, which is also really valuable, because that's another fear. I mean, with Skarm, you're probably fine against the sub bulk upset, but a nice way to be safe. I like that, rather than risking anything silly happening. So there's the Protect, and now here comes the Draco Bomb, and Dialga barely lives, but it's also going to be out of commission. And at this point, it looks like Dialga, Skarmory, Heatran, that trio is going to win the game for Sky Solo, as Dialga is can't switch in and out of hazards, and Cress is just going to get sat on forever. And Groudon is on a timer. I mean, I guess Jirachi could theoretically Healing Wish, but it just takes one Toxic. What Toxic? Oh, Heatran Toxic. It just takes one Toxic from Skarmory, and it's also going to be probably too much. As Dialga absorbs a Toxic there, and it's just back to Skarm, back to just stacking as many hazards as possible to whittle down Groudon as much as you can. And try to Toxic the Crest switching in, not really a problem. There's Trick. That was a good Whirlwind in case of Healing Wish, which is, unlikely, but in case of Healing Wish to Groudon there, at least you force it out immediately. And yeah, and then you start spamming Toxic freely against the Crest. Because the Crest will get Whirlwinded in, then you Toxic, and either Crest gets Toxic or Groudon switches in and you're fine. So that was a nice Whirlwind. But at this point, it looks like the game is extremely, extremely over. Yeah, Heatran, biggest of pains for Sun. Oh. Is computer working with the frame rate? Yeah, okay, it should be. There we go. And there's Lunar Dance. Uh-oh. Lunar Dance is like Healing Wish, but it also restores all your PP. So it's unique in that sense. So it takes a Lava Plume, avoids the burn, and so we are actually going to see this play out, but Dialga also can Draco Bomb it. Lava Plume, is it going to avoid, and it avoids the Toxic from Skarm. That's unfortunate. And now in comes Sky Solo's Groudon, which is not doing any damage to it at all. He's just trying to chunk it as much as possible for his Dialga to clean it up. Draco comes up short, and wow, what a comeback! that was a very unfortunate end with avoiding the Lava Plume burn into the full pair or Toxic Dodge or crit on Skarm. But yeah, maybe he should have Toxic spammed. Yeah, I guess he should have Toxic spammed against the Cresselia to prevent that Healing Wish from happening, rather than just spamming. Yeah, no, that should. I mean, it's Healing or Lunar Dance Crest is super, super, unlikely. But at that point, the only thing that can beat you is Lunar Dance into Groudon. So you have to cover that possibility, because if he does anything else, you don't care. So, lesson to be learned. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next one. And today's viewing recommendation is the original Night of the Living Dead.